Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another video. And today is reasons why you should be Dave-ish. So Dave-ish basically means that you're following Dave Ramsey's program, but not quite, right? There's just some slight alterations. So I have some of those alterations before me, and I'm about to suggest them to you. Before I get into this, I do want to, first of all, always please hit the like button. That does help get my videos spread. That does help with my engagement, and it typically helps push out the videos to other people. But the second thing is, people who come up to me and they say, Casey, I don't know exactly what I'm doing with my finances. And basically, if I can assume that their baseline is, hey, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know about this investing thing, this is all new to me, I will actually refer them to Dave Ramsey's program. But once you start to learn some more basics, more basically ways to use leverage, ways to get to your goal faster, okay, ways that don't have to necessarily be unsafe, but they can be complex. They can involve some a little bit more risk taking. They can involve a little bit more calculation and doing it yourself. So anyways, let's just without further ado, get right into this. So 8 reasons to be Dave-ish. Let's go through his baby steps. So here on the screen, I've got baby step 1, which is get current on current liabilities, credit cards, bills, things of that nature. So not going to argue that one. If you're not current on your credit cards, your bills, obviously you should get current on your credit cards and your bills and all that stuff. Second one that I added in is develop multiple sources of income. So this one is nothing to do with Dave Ramsey's program, okay? Because he doesn't really openly advocate for this. This is not a part of his program. This is something that I suggest personally, is having multiple sources of income. Why is that? Because Dave Ramsey is a really big advocate of the emergency fund, which is also great. The emergency fund is great, but even better than an emergency fund is an emergency source of income, right? So you'd rather have that second source of income become what is sustaining you rather than a fixed finite amount of money that's set on the side. So first thing he says, save $1,000. Okay, so save $1,000. I wanted to go into basically how much that will actually get you. So let's look at that. All right, so looking in here on bankrate.com, we see that among respondents who reported that they had basically an emergency expense, the expense was 28% of people said that they had an emergency expense, and the average cost was $3,518. Okay, so $3,518, obviously that is a larger number than 1,000, right? Which is what he recommends. So on average, if you do have an emergency expense, that's not going to cover it. So you're still going to go back into debt. So what I would recommend is that he takes his first step and puts it to, makes it 3 to 6 months. Okay, so what is 3 to 6 months? So let's check that out. The average household spending, if you take the taxes out of this, so if we take that $7,400 out right there, let's go into the calculator. All right, we get that 56,000 number. So if we take that, divide that by 12. All right, so conservatively, we are looking at about 4,700. Okay, that's what people spend in a month. So we take that and let's multiply that out by 3. Okay, just so that we can get our 3-month emergency fund. That's roughly $14,088. Okay, so 14,000, that would be 3 months. We multiply that out by 2. Okay, and we get $28,000. So you should have about $14,000 to $28,000 saved before you can consider yourself to actually have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund based on people's expenses. Okay, so this is just the average household budget in the US. So that's one thing that I would definitely switch around, which is his baby step 3. That would be my baby step 1. Okay, save up that amount of money so that you are secure. And the reason why he doesn't do that is because he says that people will spend their money. But of course, a lot of these steps for Dave, they are good for people that don't have any discipline. If you do have discipline, then these are not going to necessarily be the best way to go about things. So baby step 2, okay, debt snowball. So let's look at the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche. So we've got an example here, okay? In the debt snowball, we've got an example where it's $10,000 in credit card debt at 18%, $9,000 in car loan at 3%, and $15,000 at 4.5% on a student loan. So basically, long story short, with the debt snowball, what you end up with is you end up paying $500 more overall. And with the debt avalanche, you end up paying it off around the same amount of time, 11 months. But with the debt snowball, you end up paying more interest, so $500 more in interest. So in other words, the debt snowball ends up with you paying more in interest. So that's another thing I would change. Okay, if you have some knowledge about finances, if you have some discipline. Baby step 3, as we already said, that should be baby step 1, saving 3 to 6 months of expenses, because then you're actually safe. You're not going to end up, I don't know, let's say your kid needs some type of a surgery or something. You're not going to have to let your kid die or go into some deeper form of debt or whatever, what have you. Baby step number 4 is invest 15% of your income. And the questions are twofold for me. Why 15%? That's the number 1 question. Number 2 question is, why growth stock mutual funds? And I'm about to tell you why. This was an article from about 2 videos ago. Basically, it was 17 things that millionaires do, okay? And one of the things that they do is save 64% is their savings rate. So 64% is their savings rate. So why would we target 15%? Well, we're going to get into that later in the video. But first, let's get into the whole growth stock mutual fund thing. So if we look over here, I'm going to go into my notes app here. If we look at this, this is the expense ratio. So if you go to something like a Vanguard S&P 500 fund, which is something that outperforms most fund managers, Warren Buffett actually had a bet where he bet fund managers that they could not outperform the S&P 500, and generally speaking, they don't. Dave Ramsey recommends load funds where they will take up to 7 to 8% of your investment up front, and then they will manage your investments for you. So the good thing about that is that you have this mentor, this coach, as he says, the heart of a teacher, all that stuff that he says. That is a good thing if you absolutely have no idea what you're doing. Okay, if you don't know that when the market's hitting bottom, you shouldn't be selling. If you have somebody who's at least going to tell you that, that could be worth the price of admittance. Somebody just keeping you calm and keeping you investing. Okay, so that can be a good service to some people, but for a lot of people that, like I said, if you have discipline, if you know what you're doing, you don't necessarily need that, right? You don't need somebody to tell you to buy an index fund that has a 0.03% ratio, expense ratio, like VOO does, the S&P 500 index fund from Vanguard over there. So expense ratio is essentially management fees divided by the total investment in the fund. And like we said, with the load funds, 7 to 8% of your money up front, and then you get an investment manager for that price. So the next baby step down here is save for your kids' college fund. Okay, so 2 things that I would say about that is, number 1, it is optional, okay, in the sense that, number 1, they don't necessarily have to go to college, okay, so that might not be something that everybody wants to do. You might not even want your kid to have the privilege of having their college saved for. In addition, 529 plans are not always the best way to actually save for your college. They don't have the best investment products in them. Always, some states, honestly, just quite frankly suck. And if you have your own investments going, you don't quite need the 529 plan, all right? There's some different drawbacks, such as like if you don't actually end up using it on college, that will end up incurring a penalty. So you'll have to pay to get that money out anyways. The tax savings will go away. There's some drawbacks to the 529 plan. In addition, if you actually look at statistically speaking, wealthy families, 90% after 3 generations, the wealth is dissipated. So in my view, it's not the worst idea to make, let's say, your kid work for college. Teach them to be economically productive early on in life so that they either have to work for college because they'll appreciate it more. I had to work for my college and I actually appreciated it more when I had to work for it. Continuing down the line of that statistic, 70% of wealthy families will not be wealthy after 2 generations, or basically that's 60 years. So I think we've beat that dead horse enough, and we'll move on to the next baby step, which is pay off your home early. So I wanted to show you guys this investment opportunity. This is one that I'm looking at right now, and it is basically rent by the room. Okay, so I'm in here in this group, Seattle Housing Rent by the Room. And look at this. You can see around the Seattle area, you could rent for $1,200. Look, this person right on cue, this person's looking to rent for $1,200. You can rent a master bedroom for up to $1,500. If you have, let's say, a house like this one, I was looking at this one earlier. Looks pretty nice. Probably want to get a little bit closer to Seattle. But if you rent out something like this has got 5 bedrooms. If I was able to get, I don't know, $900, $1,000 or so for every bedroom, put myself in the master bedroom, that'd be $4,000. The estimated mortgage on this is $3,100. That's $900 of profit. Have people help me with the bills, and yeah, you're making a profit for living in this house. So that is something that doesn't necessarily align with that pay off the house early, but it is a good idea financially. It's something that has propelled a lot of people to millionaire status. Real estate is going through the roof right now, and like I said, it's a lot safer when you've got this 30-year fix. Dave Ramsey had a variable rate on his loan, so his situation was a lot different. So that's my last beef with that baby step. But then the last baby step, I can't have any beef with that because it is build wealth and give. Okay, so I feel like that's what it's all about. All right, it's all about giving back. It's all about living the life that you want to live, living life on your terms. But anyways, that's what I think about those baby steps. Like I said before, if people absolutely have no idea where they're doing, what they're doing, where they're going, it's good for them to get started on the baby steps. It's good to get started getting out of debt, at least with Dave Ramsey. But once you start to learn a couple more concepts and you realize that you could be maneuvering, making bigger moves, might be time to move on to Dave Ish. So anyways, hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next video.